Hello, I'm John Harney, the executive editor of the New England Journal of Higher Education. I'm talking today with Peter Smith about his new book titled Stories from the Educational Underground, The New Frontier for Learning and Work. Peter is the Orkand Chair and Professor of Innovative Practices at the University of Maryland University College. He is founder of the Open College at Kaplan University and founding president of the Community College of Vermont and California State University, Monterey Bay. Among other things, Peter represented Vermont in the US Congress and served in the Vermont Senate and as Lieutenant Governor. Welcome, Peter.
Well, it's great to be with you, John.
In a nutshell, your book focuses on personal learning and all the other learning that one does. It's not planned by schools and colleges. It includes learning on the job, at home, in the community, with friends, and also via technology with computers and in libraries and other data and information sources. Learning from everywhere, as we said in our NEJHE coverage, is really about learning from everywhere, in a sense. How's the reception been so far to the book?
It's been really phenomenal in that I think I mean, don't confuse me with Michelle Obama or anybody. You're not going to read about me in the New York Times, but the book has been out now several months. And I think what really has touched people is two or three things. One is that the learners that I interviewed and just those 20 stories and showing the talent and the capacity and the intelligence that they have, which was ignored formally by the society, and then how they became success stories, but they got lucky. I mean, they were very plucky, they worked hard, but just understanding that the work that community colleges and state colleges and universities and innovative programs like the Community College of Vermont, frankly, I'm so proud of that place, I can barely stand it, that there's a social justice element to this, that we are leaving talent by the roadside because we've structured our institutions in such a way which has achieved wonderful goals. This isn't an anti-college screed, but for every person who is successful in our formal system, there are people who are not served by it at all or are not served well by it. And I wanted to uncover that talent, because when that talent is ignored or denied, it doesn't just hurt them. And that's the mythology in our country. Well, if you've got grit, you'll make it. And if you don't, too bad for you. Well, I think what COVID taught us, if we didn't know it already, is too bad for all of us, too bad for the society. When you leave people on the sidelines, you're leaving their talent and their contribution on the sidelines as well. And that makes us weaker as a society. So I think there was reminding people in a very human way, which is why I wanted to do the book, was to go out and really immerse myself in the lives of the people who are statistics for so many of us, the underserved or the this or the that. And I wanted to go out and meet them again after many years of doing lots of other things and really help people understand why what we do in higher education in all of its forms, but as we look at these new issues and problems and unfinished business, why it is really, what we do is really important to the future of the country. The third thing was that as I interviewed them, I came to a moment where I realized that I wasn't sure I could write the book. And I because here I am, a graduate of Andover and Princeton and Harvard, and by any measure, an icon of white male privilege. And I thought, oh my God, I can't write this book. I'm up on the stage preaching, book. No. I went to my wife and said, I can't write this book. And she thought about it for a minute and she said, tell your own story. Show them what it's like when the road to success is paved, and when people pick you up when you fall down, and when you get the benefit of the doubt, and you're born into networks of influence. And I said, I can do that. And it allowed me to go back. But now, having interviewed the 20 people, I was looking at my life through their eyes, not just my own eyes. And so that became chapter one, my story. And frankly, it was an incredible learning moment for me, there's nothing in there that I hadn't thought about before, but understanding it in the larger context, my own place in the larger context of privilege and things that need to be done better in this country for everyone, it really, it changed me. So I think the personal nature of the book has really touched people. And I guess the best way I could put it, I was at ASU GSV last fall, and 3 people separately, I did a thing on the book, and it had books in the bookstore and all that, but 3 people came up to me and said, I read your book and I wept. And I thought, so I joked. I said, well, I hope you wept for the right reasons, the right reasons. And they said, oh yeah. But then I said, okay, you hit the target you wanted to hit, which is to touch people personally. This isn't just a job, it's about the future of the country as well.
I have to say, I actually really enjoyed the chapter about your own privilege, which I thought was very interesting. And I wondered, though, given the sort of angle of the book, you must have learned a lot from the experiences you had as well that were more traditional in terms of those in higher education and secondary institutions.
Oh,
And also the question, I guess, also, could you have attained those experiences if you weren't formally educated?
I think it is fair to say that there are all sorts of reasons that I talk about in that chapter. There are people without my kind of background today who are doing things that would have been impossible to consider 40 and 50 years ago. In my case, coming from a family that had been in Vermont for over 200 years, or 150 years at that point. And I write about the fact that we had to have the right idea at the Community College of Vermont, and we had to be good at it. But the fact is, and I had credibility, quote unquote, because of who I was and what family I came from. If I'd been somebody from Kansas City, just showed up to do it, I think it could have been a different deal. And in the fact of the ways that my own background gave me and us the benefit of the doubt. We still had to be good enough, but I know a lot of cases where the change has been good enough and valuable and still failed politically because the credibility wasn't there for the people running it. So on the one hand, there is no doubt in my mind that it's more than just getting out of Princeton, going to Harvard for a year and then coming up to Vermont, but being able to go to the Outward Bound School after I graduated from high school, going back to the National Outdoor Leadership School and understanding the power of experience, and then being able to reflect back on my experiences at Princeton and Harvard, where I had community-based and personal experiences that really were forming me, even though I didn't know it. I wasn't aware of it. And so, I think there's no doubt in my mind that having some kind of a formal educational background from recognized institutions, I don't think it had to be those 3 or those 2, was essential. But being able to imagine that I could do that when I was 24, 25 years old, and just do it and not ask anybody's permission, that has a lot to do with where I came from and my own sense of, as I wrote in the book, I never doubted I had a right to be trying to do it. I didn't know if we'd succeed or not, but I never doubted I had a right to be at that table. And that to me is a function of privilege. It's also a function of being, well, they call me occasionally wrong, but never in doubt, and we had a phenomenal group of people and we were just committed to making it happen. I think you raise a good question. And I think part of the drama around education and work today is that if I learn really sophisticated critical thinking, and I learn how to work on a team, and I have experiences that make me really effective in a diverse working environment, and I learn those things some other way or in some other setting, United States military, wherever it might be, or in work, or the Peace Corps, or whatever. We need to figure out how to recognize that learning. So it is it's not a either or, it's a both and kind of a situation. And if I can only get to a certain level by the time I'm 32, and I have to work and I'm going to school on the side and I'm engaged in experiential learning, I ought to be able to come, and I get the equivalent of an associate degree, I ought to be able to come back 10 years later and go after the equivalent of a bachelor's degree if that's what I want to do. And that's really hard to do right now.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a part where you quote Steve Lohr from the New York Times talking about hiring should be based on skills more than degrees, almost like the competency-based idea that we've talked about so much. But aren't there also issues that can be ascribed to following through, the value of following through that's often ascribed to college completion and the connections you make and scholarship in a field, for example, that may not be measured by a job, you know?
Well, you know, any argument has its limitations. And for instance, I don't think Steve Lohr, and I know I wouldn't, argue that you want to receive brain surgery from somebody who hasn't been to medical school and learned how to operate on brains, or the same with engineering. Or, but if you think about some really advanced computer science, those things can be learned other ways. And really what it gets to, I mean, in my mind, is there are always going to be exceptions, and there are places where licensure is needed. But if I can show you, like if I could qualify as a CPA some other way, and it was validated and appropriate and accurate, why not? So to me, it's more a matter of, the answer is yes, but you know, even at like at UMGC, and the same was true in almost every other job I've had, you know, almost 2/3 of the students we lose don't get a certificate or a degree, leave for non-academic reasons. Life happens to them, and we're very flexible, and we're working on it, and we're getting a hell of a lot better at it. But that notion that this straight path of now 6 years on average, but anyway, in my day it was 4, is the only way or the best way for everybody. I think that's what's under pressure. And I think the economics of it are under pressure. But as I said, this isn't an anti-college screed at all. I think colleges are going to have to change. You're going to see weekend colleges more and evening colleges and come and go learning, and you know, and it's going to be institutions that 20 years ago were doing business one way and one way only. So I just think we're going to see, as I write in the book, I think there are going to be multiple models for getting a continuing higher post-secondary education throughout life. But what we're going to begin to develop, rather than a model like campus or weekend or online or hybrid, we're going to have characteristics of quality. And so you'll be able to, whatever the model is that people are employing, do learners get what they came for? Can they afford it? Are they getting good support? Are the faculty qualified to teach the thing they're teaching? Are they getting the support they need? Et cetera, et cetera. They're going to be indicators, regardless of the model. I don't care how you, and I do care how you do it, but in the sense, I don't care how you do it, but you better be able to show me that you're way above, you're above average, you're good at the following 7 things or 10 things. And a lot of the accreditors are beginning to try to look at it that way as well. Higher Learning Commission in Chicago has really got a lot of good work going on along that way. So it's, but it's a very good question, a very reasonable question to keep asking.
And theoretically, the CPA you talk about, for example, could also become a teacher of future CPAs. I mean, I guess that's part of what I'm getting at, is where's the sort of academic structure come in?
Our whole model was, you know, if you think about the Renaissance, the Reformation, and then what came forward through the land grant, and then, as I write, where the GI Bill really began to change the landscape. We had a very, very set sense of the liberal arts, what was important to know. It was determined largely, frankly, in those days by white men who were religious, and the main track was a religious track. You go back to the early days of Harvard, that's what it was about. And I cannot, I can't deny that approach benefited me. I prospered through it. But if the point is to create people who know a lot about accounting and can apply the principles of accounting in multiple situations, can do so effectively and satisfy the people they work with and the people they're serving, then who teaches them to be really good at what they do? I'm not sure is a PhD in the philosophy of accounting, or what I'm making that up, but
Right.
I wouldn't want to say they couldn't, but I think there are other ways. And one of the things you're seeing where necessity is the mother of invention, it's happening out here in New Mexico, where I'm currently living. They're short of teachers and they're short of teacher aides. And what they're doing is hiring people who have gotten an associate's degree, some baccalaureate, maybe it's all baccalaureates, but they're putting them in a classroom with another teacher, and they're having a year of teaching experience with some other stuff thrown on top. And then they're calling that an alternative sort of quick certification. I'm not, frankly, at all sure that that isn't a better way to, if you're talking about an engaged profession like K-12 teaching, not sure how much, I'll put it this, how much less you're going to learn if you're in the actual working environment with a thought-provoking curriculum and expectations and things you've got to produce and things you got to do and books you got to read. Mm-hmm. But it's all based on what's happening to you every single day. Yeah. And I think that might frankly be as good a way to train a teacher, and you're making a little money. Mm-hmm. You're working. I don't know. So I think
people writing those books, but maybe that's just as well.
Well, I think the fact of the matter is we do need people who are thinking hard about how the brain develops, the role of nutrition, the role of race, the role of discrimination. I mean, all the different things. All I'm saying is to say that that's the only way to become capable. I need to benefit, if I'm a practitioner and a professional, I may need to benefit from that research, but I don't need to be able to duplicate.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
You touched on the sort of racial issues involved too. Are they are the sort of terrible inequities that we've seen addressed by this new sense of what it means to be educated? I mean, I think I wonder whether these institutions that are not higher education institutions are free from the different biases that marred the institutions themselves or not.
Oh, I think, boy, that's a tough. I don't think anybody is free from those biases. I mean, but the question is, are there? If you had 100 people and you had 10 models for achieving some learning, how would you figure out which was the best model to meet the life circumstance of those 100 people? And I don't think it would be one model for all 100. So then you get to the question, for instance, I talk about the College Unbound in Providence, Rhode Island, where they start the first thing, and I'm ad-libbing and I don't work there, they do with an incoming adult learner is say, what brought you here? Why are you here now? And that is, in fact, a short course in which that person begins to think not about, gee, college is a good thing for me, but much more granularly, why am I here? What do I want? What do I need to do? What are the problems I'm trying to solve? And I think when there's a kind of respect in that, and I write about the notion of respect in the book, where if your culture isn't respected, if you don't say, and the Rufus Glasper, who wrote wrote the foreword in the book and talking about going to university and having people just being in a very small minority of African Americans at a state university, and how people, he had professors who literally told him they didn't think he's going to do as well because he was Black and he was from Chicago. So I think there's a matter of affiliation and respect. And respect isn't just me being nice to you or saying thank you so much, but in the policies and in the practices, am I respecting the learning you bring with you? Am I saying, I may not think it has all the value you think it has, but am I building on what you bring as opposed to replacing what you bring with my version of what you need? And so I think it becomes much more a case of the fit, economic, social, civic, academic fit between the profile of the learner who is coming to us, whoever we are, and the way the school, the college is organized in order to promote good, high quality learning. So a person who might go to UVM or UNH or Middlebury might have come through the Community College of Vermont, or, and I know there's another institution in New Hampshire. Mo Oliver used to work there, it was a long time ago, but I know there's a similar sort of open public program.
College.
There you go.
Yeah.
But they might have come through that, but in all likelihood, they're probably from families that with or without Pell and loans can afford to go to college. My grandchildren, okay? But even my grandchildren are beginning to say, maybe I'm going to take a gap year. I think I need to work before I go to school because all I've ever done is eat, sleep, go to school, and ski. Or I'm making that up. They do a hell of a lot more than that. But
that sounds like the northern New England angle.
There you go. There you go. So far,
Yeah.
but the point of the matter is that I think there are going to be a lot of different ways to skin the cat, and while I think the major research universities will continue to educate the researchers who go out and rediscover new parts of the universe and create new levels of engineering and understanding of medicine, all that. That is a very small percentage of the people. And I think they're going to find better ways to do it as well. And they're going to have to find cheaper ways. But if you grow up in a situation where life deals you a foul ball and or you don't have the money or the expectations behind you, or life just interrupts, which you saw in multiple cases in the book, and you can't go that way, how do we capture how do we harness your talent? And how do we let you go as far as you can and want to go in terms of expanding your knowledge? How do we respect your life at that level? That's what I'm after.
Let me test one more sort of college advocacy possibility on you. At one point, you note that the traditional college, I'm quoting here, the traditional college experience usually confirms mainstream cultural and intellectual expectations. But it seems to me that for a lot of students, college is their first encounter with something that's not mainstream, probably. And again, I don't know that that's a reason to start a billion-dollar industry that's charging kids tens of thousands of dollars to experience that. But it seems like it is a part of the value proposition of higher education is that it was a place to hear non-mainstream ideas and experience.
I think, and I think you make a very good point. And I was actually arguing in a slightly different direction. I would never argue the point you just made. For many people, going to college is in fact exposure to people and circumstances. But what I was trying to, and so I'm with you 100%. And I think that the thing that I was trying to say is that in my experience, beginning with the Community College of Vermont and coming through my current work at UMGC and where we work with military people, veterans and all sorts of people. And then through these interviews, that there are people who can never get to college through no fault of their own. And there are people who go to college, but it doesn't, or they think it's not for them. So they don't go. They just say that's for someone else. And they do that. They can do that for reasons that they think are valid. They can also do that out of an sort of intuitive sense that place isn't respectful of me. So again, I think you take a student who graduates from Champlain College in Burlington, Vermont. It's just an amazing school. And they have an incredible success ratio. Their students get jobs. It's an amazing place. And there are hundreds of places like that. We always hear about the bad ones and or the mediocre ones. This isn't about that. It's about, if we're succeeding with 35% of the people, can we find a way to be equally successful with the next 35%? And I'm making the numbers. The first number is roughly accurate. But, and I really think that opening up, having college be, if I'm an 18-year-old, I think it's a pretty reasonable thing to assume I'm not bringing a whole lot of extra learning with me. I'm going to bring some. But if I'm over 26 and I've held 2 jobs and been in the military, gotten married, maybe divorced, blah, blah, I'm not just a blank slate. And I guess part of what I'm saying is how we educate those people, how we respect what they've got and build on it and help them figure out really why they want to do it. And they may not want a degree. They may want something else. Right. They need something else. There's some suspicion I've had for quite a while that, students don't get Pell unless they sign up for a half-time student and they got a degree or a certificate program. And you have a lot of times those students drop out. I've heard, and I don't have research on this, that one of the things that sometimes they drop out, but other times they get what they came for, which was 2 courses in X, but they couldn't get Pell, so they couldn't go to school unless they said they wanted a certificate. So they signed up for the certificate and then they got what they wanted and they left, and they look like a dropout, but they may be, in fact, a success in the sense they got what they came for. So I just think those are the kinds of things that we need to be, or if I'm doing perfectly well academically, 2/3 of our students, a lot of students at Kaplan, lots of places, and then they go away for non-academic reasons. How sensitive are we to that? How do we hold on to them and say, when you're ready, come back? How do we my analogy in the book of the emergency room, where, when traditionally, when you come to college, it's up to you to be successful. And in an emergency room, they do not say, oh, come back when your temperature's down to 101. They take you in, and they, now health, emergency health and higher ed are very different. But I'm advocating from a societal point of view for more of an analytical approach that is based on respect for why the person is there and helping them understand that and then be successful. My new measure for success is, did you get what you came for?
And it is usually non-academic reasons, or did you say
non-academic. Yeah. Death in the family, lost my job, got divorced, but
and financial reasons probably. Sometimes.
Absolutely.
Do you have any proposals in terms of how those gaps could be bridged for students in addition to the? I mean, there's always
I think the first step, and I know we are doing it at UMGC, is to actually develop pools of money through gifts. Largely, I think it's all gifts, that if somebody is in the last, I'm making this part up, third of their certificate or degree program, and they run into a problem where they can't pay their tuition or their circumstances have changed, one, we can give them leave and we don't charge them for a course they didn't finish. Or two, if it's all about the money and we can help them with a scholarship that will help them persist, we do that. But behind that is knowing what's going on in a learner's life. And that is, none of us are as good as we need to be at that without prying, you know. But I remember the wonderful story, and I believe it. It could be apocryphal, told by a person I knew at Western Governors. They have a situation where their students get an advisor, friend, mentor, day one. Not an academic advisor, not a financial advisor, just somebody who's watching them and they talk with. And the story was that a student had their husband died. And the first person she called was her mentor at Western Governor. Said, what do I do? What do I do? And they were able, I mean, you know, he obviously wasn't going to keep going to school right then, but they, right. And then like 8 months or a year later, this woman came back and finished her program. But there was a relationship there that none of us are good enough at. I think has to be better because we're used to dealing with healthy patients. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, I got a cold. Oh, okay, fine. And
but that
now we've got, and we're defining what health is.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway.
But that mentor must have been a well-rounded.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know, you can find, I know you're going back to your new, absolutely. But the other thing is the qualities of mentoring are not they are as much emotional and intuitive and I'm trying to think of the right word as there are professional parts. But becoming you can go to the best counseling course, call it counseling, in the world and still not be a good counselor.
Yeah.
Because you don't. So to me, again, it's the blend. And I would want mentors at the very least to have a degree and or experience and or gone through what it is that people they're talking to are going through.
And people could find that support network even if they weren't connected to a specific institution.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it just, you know, to me, it comes down to, we know, for instance, when people have their prior learning assessed, and this is CALE data, and I'm so old, I was on the founding board of CALE in 1972, God forbid. But if you complete a portfolio and assessment course, your chances of finishing the program you're in successfully, my memory is double. And that's because not only are you getting the value academically, but as you go through the assessment process, you reflect on your experience and you get a much firmer sense. And you saw some of that in the interviews that I did as people began to think back on their lives, really understanding pivotal moments and things that changed them forever and have formed their values. So I think, you know, the issues, however we do it, it isn't just a dollars and cents, save money, save time, get advanced standing. There's that element. But there's also the element that when I reflect on things I've done, I'm extracting meaning from that experience. So I went to Outward Bound. Fine. I learned about teaming. I learned that, as I write in the book, the guy who can light the fire in the rain, as you reflect on experiences and then you learn how to be a reflective person, I think that's where you become a lifelong learner. Yeah. Where you can extract knowledge or meaning or both from failures, successes, you name it. I learn more from failures. That's why I've learned so much. You know?
It's interesting. I always thought that Kale and PLA were kind of fascinating concepts, but I never, I always got stuck on how they seem to be sort of a linear link to what you would correspond with an actual course in a college, as opposed to a broader reflective reward
Well,
for what you've learned.
there's no doubt in the beginning,
Mhm.
50 years ago, it was, we were relying, we would have faculty members from the University of Vermont, Champlain, state colleges, and experts in the community would sit and literally look at paper portfolios.
Mhm.
And we had the curriculum and it was outcomes based. We had 10 competencies, one of which I think to this day, I've always, some of the things we did necessarily changed. This one did change, but I think it's been borne out. One of the 10 competencies was to have deep knowledge and ability in a particular area. The other 9, there may have been 2 like that. The other 8 or 9 were different ways of understanding that knowledge and ability, applying it, problem solving, all that kind of stuff. And so we would bring these boxes, cartons of paper. I mean, it was nuts. And then we'd have a team of 4 professionals read the stuff, talk to the learner, look at the 10 areas of competence, think about what an associate degree meant, and lay it out. Now, it's way better than that today because we're doing a much, not community college Vermont, they're in another planet. I mean, I could never have dreamed how cool and wonderful they were going to become. But we collegially in general, one, you're seeing even in non-competency courses, and I do think I call it evidence-based assessment, but whatever. I think you're going to see more and more of that. But there is a hierarchy of learning. There are more sophisticated learning outcomes. We're doing a much better job in general about saying what they are course by course. So if you're in a situation where it's not medieval history, I mean, in that case, but you are able to show, and I as a college can say, here's the test, quote unquote, of if you can show me you can do this, you're going to get 3 credits in that course. Because the sum total of that course is I want you to be able to do the next course, and I want you to know the following things. And we're getting much better at having that be quite data driven. And the ultimate proof is, can you do the next course? I mean, I always, when somebody transfers into a college, all the work that's done to place them, one of the things I've often thought is, and you could do this badly and stupidly, but is if somebody comes in and says, I'm here, or the institution that sent them says, I'm here, assume they're right, put them in the next course. You'll know within 2 weeks whether they can do the work or not. If they can't do the work, you put them back. Why waste all this person power trying to fine tune beforehand? Give them a chance to show it. But assessment of prior learning, I think you're going to see much more of it, and it's going to be quite data driven. But the thing that is going to matter is we're going to hang on to critical thinking, the ability to write persuasively and well, problem solving, numeration. I don't love math, but my question always is, how much math do I need to know to do what I need to do? Did I really need algebra 2 and calculus? I don't think so. I know not. But anyway, but I think you're going to see, I think of assessment in the future as being the content of the course, to use a course format, accounting 101. Then you have the sort of cross-cutting intellectual skills. Can we evaluate your critical thinking, your ability to write, your use of mathematics, et cetera, to problem solve? Okay? How we assess your knowledge of accounting can show us those things. Or it can just show us that you know what we taught you. And then the third dimension to that is teamwork, diversity, all those kinds of human traits. Can we have a 3-dimensional assessment of college courses as well as experiential learning that creates common ground? And that means that I can do it one way and you can do it another, but if we created a common ground, we can talk to each other about it.
Thank you for your time. This was great.
You're welcome.